Hi, Jenni here, and in the month of April I only read 3 books and accidentally only read popular books. What did I think of them? Well, let's see. The first book I read was Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke, and this tells the story of a trad wife named Natalie who has plenty of children, is married, they live in a farm that they run themselves, and Natalie posts online about their idyllic Christian family life. Then suddenly, when allegations against Natalie surface, Natalie wakes up in 1855. Everything seems similar enough, but things are not the same. Her husband, still the same, but a little bit different. Her children, they look like they could be her children, but they're not her same children that in her modern life they are. So what is happening? What is happening? This book kind of looks into the mind of a trad wife influencer, or at least a fictional version, and takes us on the journey of how Natalie ended up here. How did she become a trad wife? How did she end up married in this wealthy family? What were her childhood expectations for her and how she should live her life? This is a brand new book. It was released in April, and I was really intrigued by the back cover when I first saw it in the bookstore. I hadn't heard about it before, but after I'd seen it in the store, I saw someone post about it online. And that's when I learned that it has gained a lot of popularity even before release. And then I was intrigued even more and started reading it. The book is told from the perspective on Natalie, and you really get into the mind of a trad wife influencer, or at least what this writer thinks is happening in the mind of a trad wife. As a main character, minor spoilers, Natalie is quite awful. She's quite hypocritical. She's horrible towards people. She is not kind. She's very strict. And the facade of a happy, healthy family she portrays online is not what's happening in the reality at all. I personally thought this was a very fascinating read. I enjoyed this book. I think the book discussed in Natalie's character the juxtaposition of Natalie being a victim of this kind of trad wife thinking, but also being a perpetrator of this lifestyle, of this narrow view for womanhood. The writing is quite straightforward. I really felt like it was written for an online book audience, but I didn't mind it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this read. It was very thought-provoking. And now there are plenty of trad wives that this book could have taken influence from. I'm not gonna start naming names. And we do not know how they will think, but I feel like maybe some of those women who portray this perfect life, maybe they are bitter. Maybe they are stressed. Maybe they are just horrible. And I think for me, a personal part, or kind of a slight connection I had with this story, is that I grew up in a small town that had a very notable religious community. I wasn't a part of it. My family was not a part of it at all, but it was a notable part of our town. I could see kind of the representations of womanhood that were here, that those were things that I saw in my childhood, not completely the same, but like some aspects of it. So it made my reading experience maybe a little different from others. And it did make me think, like, if the members of that community had social media when we were growing up, like, would they have ended up like Natalie? Who knows? I don't know. But I do want to add, like, that added a really interesting layer to my reading experience. Next up, I read Emily Henry, Great Big Beautiful Life. This was released last year, and this was really popular from the release because Emily Henry is a popular author, especially on book online communities. And I was really intrigued by this book right when it was released, but I decided to wait until I read it for myself. And then this month I just got this, like, okay, maybe it's time to read it. Is it available in my local library? And it was, which was surprising because usually Emily Henry's new books have quite long queues to wait. Essentially, this tells the story of two writers, Alice, who is a journalist, and Hayden, who is an autobiographer. And they are both invited to audition to write Margaret Ives's biography. Margaret Ives is a member of a very wealthy, impactful American family. And there are lots and lots of secrets within that family. That's kind of the vaguest summary I can give of this plot. I really loved the main character, Alice. I thought she was very sweet and very dedicated to her work and wanting to write this biography. I also really liked the chapters that discuss and discovered the Ives family history. Although, of course, when there's only one person within the family telling the story, can you trust the narrator there? The book kind of delves into that as well. I also really loved the atmosphere of the book. It takes place in a very small town in Georgia. And it also discusses, family dynamics, which is something that I'm always really interested in reading. And overall, I really, really enjoyed this book. I think it's become one of my top favorite Emily Henry books. And the writing just takes you along. I couldn't put this book down. So I really enjoyed this. The last book I read during the month of April, although I kind of read this while I read those other two books as well, is All About Love by Bell Hooks. And this has also been very popular. I've seen so many book reviews on YouTube saying how this book is life-changing when it comes to love and all the different aspects of it. So when my book club said that the next topic for next session is love, I asked if we could read this, and they actually had thought of it themselves as well. So I'm really happy that I could get into this. And like I said, it's all about how love needs to be at the core of our society, at the core of every single type of community, and how we in this capitalist patriarchal society have strayed far from it, but we could, and there are ways for us to go back to having love at the center of everything. And I really loved that aspect of it and that message. I especially loved the essays that discussed how our capitalist society has made it so that instead of us looking to other people, we've become very individualists, when in reality we need communities, we need care and love for each other. I loved the essay about children's rights and children's right to love and being well taken care of. It especially discussed abuse towards children and how many people justify it when in reality it's very cruel and should not be normalized. It also discussed romantic love as well as spiritual love. All these essays had a specific topic to them, but all of them also intertwined with each other and kind of discussed the different aspects of love just within one essay as well. There were some aspects that didn't quite deliver for me in this book. For example, Bell Hooks discusses work and how important it is to have a job that you absolutely love. And I think that's a beautiful idea, but it's not really realistic, especially in 2026 when jobs are so scarce and the opportunities to even have a job are diminishing. Of course, this was written in 2002. Bell Hooks would have not had any idea that that would be happening in 2026. But I did note that this book was released right after the 90s recession, during which a lot of people were struggling. So that kind of, well, you should do what you love as your job. It felt a bit naive to me and not as nuanced as it could be. And the argument that if you hate your job, just try to think of something else that could make you love it or at least appreciate it. And again, very sweet, very lovely, but not realistic in my opinion. So I feel like the essay regarding work was not as nuanced as I wish it would have been. I also think discussing spiritual love and spirituality is fine and interesting, but I feel like the book discussed it a bit too much. I feel like it could have done without such excessive discussion regarding spirituality, because it's such a personal journey, and yes, organized religion is a thing and people find community within their faith and religion, and that's beautiful. However, I don't think it was necessary to discuss spirituality within love so excessively. And one thing that kind of irked me was that bell hooks often used males and females interchangeably with men and women, and it was not in the context of like biological male and female, but rather using it as a synonym, when in reality they cannot be interchangeable, because with that messaging, when you are describing social learned behavior by using male and female, you are making those biological, which they are not. And at times bell hooks would mention that, but then would go back to using males and females, do this and do that. And I was just irked by it and annoyed by it. And of course, with that in mind, this book was quite cisgender focused, very males and females, men and women, which to me is quite a narrow discussion when it comes to love. But again, it's released in 2002, so maybe that's to do with it. An example of using males and females when they could have just used women, girls, boys, men, people. Females are encouraged by patriarchal thinking to believe we should be loving, but this does not mean we are any more emotionally equipped to do the work of love than our male counterparts. Like for me, using men, women, girls and boys would make sense to me more so than males and females, because we're talking about learned social behavior. We're talking about human feelings. We're not talking about biology, if that makes sense. But still, I am really happy to have read this book, and I can't wait to see what kind of discussions we have about love in the book club. I've read previous works by bell hooks, Born Black and Ain't I a Woman, and I really enjoyed those. So it was a bit of a disappointment that I didn't fully enjoy all about love. But I also did love the parts that were very engaging and like very thought-provoking. Are those popular books worth reading? I think so. I think all of them had something valuable to them. And even though I didn't choose to read popular books on purpose, but it just kind of happened, and I can definitely see why these specific books are so popular. The reason why I only read 3 books in this month, which isn't a little, like if you read 1 book, that's already great. But first of all, I went to Riga. That was beautiful. Then after Riga, I was very, very ill with a cold. While I was sick, we got the news that my great aunt had been hospitalized, and eventually she recently passed away. So I've been dealing with mental health issues for a bit now. I've mentioned it a few times that I've been having a hard time recently. And now with the passing of my great aunt, who was so important to me, very beloved and just very dear to me, I can't take it anymore. I wanted to share that I'm gonna take a short break from posting videos. I just need to take a moment to step back from essentially everything, from social media and just from everything, to kind of process this grief, process this massive loss, and just kind of recalibrate my life and my time and so on. So I'm taking a break from posting videos, but I will be back, don't worry. May my great aunt rest in peace. She had a really long life. She lived to 92, but losing her is still really, really rough. And while I've dealt with a lot of grief and a lot of loss in my life, it doesn't get easier. So I hope you can show me this grace, and I hope you're okay with me taking a break. All right, everyone stay healthy. Stay safe. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Bye.